My name is Joseph Wunderlich. I'm a professor of engineering, architecture, and computer science, and this is a summary of organic architecture design principles by Frank Lloyd Wright from many sources. And my experience, I'm born in 1961, have education, architectural engineering, and urban design, pure architecture projects until age 30, and then a lot of other things since then, including lots of high tech. So this is conform to the site is the first principle of sun, topography, environment. Pinwheel planes, the cruciform, the Prairie School certainly uses that, and around a broad central chimney with long cantilevers, overhangs, and balconies. The folded plane, like origami, so we're looking for inspiration from Japanese things, which he was doing from very early on. 1980 or 1892 or 1893 Chicago World's Fair exhibition with Japanese architecture. Then he visited Japan in 1906 and 1913, and then lived in Japan for 3 full years over a 5-year span, building the Imperial Hotel and doing other things. So simple geometries from his early youth, fourable blocks, his mother using fourable methods, homeschooling him. Always a human scale is the scale that he put things to. Um, Open floor plan, destroying the Victorian box type rooms of his time, flow between rooms inside and outside, bands of windows framing views like the Japanese Engawa. Materials in nature, use materials in the natural state. Form and function R1, harmony, not one following the other, secondarily, like yin and yang from Chinese philosophy. So Japanese are Buddhist and have Shintoism and Buddhism, both religions, and the Buddhism is more of a philosophy, and the Shinto is more of the spirits, rooted in Chinese philosophy. And so they're complementary form and function, like yin and yang. A unified whole, inside and out, orchestrating the sun. Very first green kind of thought at all, way before anybody invented that kind of thinking. Real. John Muir was existing at that same time. I actually went to the University of Wisconsin around the same time as Frank Lloyd Wright, but he wasn't an architect. Bring nature out of materials, but also innovate. So textile blocks, modular Ken design system, which you can see is inspiring him at times. The structure of that, the modularity of that. Structural art. It was referring in some of his writings to the Japanese woodblock prints that he collected throughout his life, quite a few, and inspired him. And he admitted to that inspiring him. Other things he would not admit to. Louis Sullivan and the fourable blocks he would admit to inspiring him, but parallels between his architecture and Japanese architecture, he was just saying it's because they're of like mind, but his is original. Soft, warm, optimistic color tones of earth, assimilating fixtures into the structure that goes for the light fixtures as well as built-in furniture. Many plants and planters. Architecture is music, both literally in his buildings, put places always for pianos, most places, or actually put them in certain buildings, organs and pianos, and metaphorically also in the structure of the structural art of the music and the rhythm and the organization, like a symphony. And his father was a musician and a preacher. Also, he was a lawyer too, and he was highly educated from Colgate University, bachelor's and master's degree, when nobody really had that kind of education at the time. Also, architect mentor Louis Sullivan, which you can see some of the organic type of sensibilities of Frank Lloyd Wright, coming from Louis Sullivan, or beginning with Louis Sullivan. So Louis Sullivan was certainly an influence. And lots of the arts and crafts movement, first in England and then the United States, was going on at that time, and you'll see that in Frank Lloyd Wright's work. And also he lived in Italy for a year. You can see some of that, but mostly Japan. So from early on, seeing in the World's Fair, and then visiting twice, and then living there 3 years, and collecting Japanese prints. And it's in his writings too. He just was very prideful and didn't want to say that he's making Japanese architecture, and he wasn't. It was very original, but there was certainly a lot of things in common. So you can see some pictures here. I took a picture of this tree and of this path from Narita, and then you see some key words from a colleague, Mahawa Bhattacharya. She's the head of our Japanese program, and there's keywords for my students over the past 15 years or so, maybe longer, 20. Been working 21 years at Elizabethtown College. And then you see this gate, the Shinto gate on the far right there. That's a tractor trailer down at the bottom to give you an idea of the scale. This is in Kyoto, and my son on the right. And this gate symbolizes the entrance from the real world to the spirit world in the Shinto religion. And then one note on the bottom left here is the compression and release. It's not part of organic design, organic architecture, but it's commonly used by Frank Lloyd Wright as a psychological method to cramp or hide people, make them feel a little bit uncomfortable, even can't find the entry, or your low ceilings, not well lit, but then you really feel the impact, the drama of the destination architecture is magnified. Frank Lloyd Wright's youth was influenced, of course, by his father and mother. His mother homeschooled him using Froebel methods. Froebel invented kindergarten in Germany before Frank Lloyd Wright was born. Froebel was also influenced by Taoism and Buddhism. Japanese Shinto is rooted in Chinese Taoism mixed with indigenous Japanese religion when it came over from China to Japan. Shinto gods see in everything nature, and Frank Lloyd Wright would later love much about Japan. His father was a preacher, lawyer, school superintendent, teacher, musician, mostly a musician, although he made a living as a preacher, and not just in the Unitarian Church, but other churches too. And but mostly as a musician, and he published a book in music, and Frank Lloyd Wright was very much influenced by that throughout his life. Frank Lloyd Wright's mother was in this Unitarian church also, and the Unitarians believed love of nature and God and everything. And so there's similar parallels there. And Frank Lloyd Wright grew up in Wisconsin, mostly also lived in New England some. And in parallel here, on this slide, I show Maria Montessori, and the Montessori schools were influenced by Froebel in parallel to Frank Lloyd Wright's development, in the same time period. So future designers I show as being influenced by both Frank Lloyd Wright and perhaps Montessori methods. These are the majority of the references that I've used for these this lecture series, and they're worth taking a look at each of them individually when you have time. I've organized this lecture series into 7 parts based on 2 main things. Mostly on his life, of course, and significant things that have happened to him and things that he developed during those times, but also things in the world and in his life personally that are going on that define where he's at any given time, including 2 world wars. He's born right after the Civil War, lives through 2 world wars and the Great Depression, and the Cold War after that, and then he has 3 marriages and a mistress who's murdered, lives in Japan for 3 years, lives in Italy for a year, has a very complicated life full of things, and 500 designs that are built, many of them still preserved, and over 1,000 designs overall. So his life certainly needs to be parsed into pieces just to digest everything that he's done, and I believe these are logical groupings of time and his ages. And you can find a lot more on my website, including a number of things I teach in architecture, materials and methods course, architecture theory course, the Frank Lloyd Wright course, freshman seminar on conceptual architecture, different studio course lectures on lighting design, acoustics, and urban design. Vary that each time. And then links to each of the lecture series, plus a link to all student projects you can find on a whole other page, and high-tech integrated into it. I also teach quite a bit in computer engineering. I'm perhaps known mostly for that over the past 20-something years. And then on my YouTube channel, More and more I've been posting things there. I have a whole high-tech lecture series, my architecture thing I'm talking about right now. And so you can see a video log of 31 Frank Lloyd Wright sites I visited in and around Chicago. And I don't yet have a video log of 11 sites I just visited in and around Phoenix, but that'll be coming soon.